Dawson Rider Wiki.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here. Welcome to my review for the third episode of the Digimon Adventure 2020 Reboot series. I am late on this review again, sorry. There was news about we are going on a hiatus after this episode due to everything going on, like lots of TV shows and companies and all that. They're putting things on hiatus, so there is going to be a hiatus for an unknown amount of time between episodes 3 and 4. But when I read the news, I assumed, for whatever reason, it was after episode 2, so I thought episode 3 was the first one not to air. And I didn't realize that this didn't come out until the other day, but it made me happy because there's one more episode to watch. Once we get done with this hiatus, whenever it is ending, I will try to be better about being on time with episode reviews, having them come out weekly. But let's go ahead and jump into this episode. So it was a much slower episode than the first two in a lot of respects, but I still found it enjoyable because I like the kind of balance between quick and slow that the show has been doing. So, you know, you start off the episode, and we're basically finishing the climax of the previous two episodes. Like, this almost could have just been a whole episode on its own and just finish the Omnimon fight at the end of last week, but they probably wanted to inject a little bit of action into this episode since the beginning was the only action, finishing the fight with Omnimon, and it was fairly quick, fighting the not Diaboromon guy and evoking yet again lots of imagery from the Digimon movie and the Diaboromon fight and stuff like that. And the animation in this is just great. I think it's beautiful. Again, I don't think that the animation in the original is awful, but in terms of the fights, it's very static and very dated. And like I just said in the last video, I recently rewatched it, and you really notice it, you know, when you get older. This doesn't really stop my enjoyment of the show, but I can't deny that it's beautiful to see the animation here. But they finished the Diaboromon not guy off, and they find out that that still didn't stop the missile, so they kind of have to like concentrate somehow and like hone in on the digital signal or something, and they stop the missile themselves, and it results in this like self-contained explosion that knocks Tai back into the real world. And, you know, I was gonna say presumably Matt, but we know that later he does end up there. And so he and Izzy are kind of regrouping and trying to figure out what happened. They kind of talk about it in the elevator and realize, like, oh hey, weren't you coming over to talk about the camping trip in the first place? Like, we got caught up in all this and it's only been an hour. And then Tai's kind of chilling at home, and Kari and the mom come home, and Kari says thank you to Tai, so it kind of implies that she knows more about what's going on. Because if you remember last week, when they digivolved to Omnimon, both TK and Kari saw those feathers, so it's kind of implying that they're a little bit special, kind of like in the original series with their angel Digimon. And Kari in particular always had something special going on, so that is obviously continuing in this series, and so she knows something and she thanks Tai for it, and he doesn't understand why. We then have a brief scene, the only scene in the episode outside of the fight at the beginning, of Matt talking to TK on the phone, and TK and Kari's voice actors sound the same in this, to be honest, or actresses or whatever, whoever's voicing it, they sound the same to me. So I was like, is he talking to Kari? But he's just talking to TK, and it kind of implies they're in a similar situation to the original series where their parents are divorced and they're living separately. But that's all we get of them in this episode. And then we get back to sort of normal life, and we get to the camping trip where we get a very brief look at Joe. And I forgot to mention this in my review of the first two episodes, but outside of the opening and ending, the only look we get into any of the other characters outside of Tai, Izzy, Matt, and then the two little ones is very brief glimpse shots at all the other characters. I don't remember if it was episode 1 or 2, but that's all we've gotten. But this episode we see a brief bit of Joe at this camp, and we get formally introduced to Sora, in case you didn't know who Sora was, wearing a different hat instead of her usual bucket hat. And Tai and Izzy are trying to figure out, you know, what's all going on, what Digimon are. They're just kind of discussing it, like, is this going to happen again? All that kind of jazz. And then inevitably it does happen again, and some sort of AI ball that looks like the one from Westworld this season dumps out another virus, and then coincidentally, after that, the power starts going out everywhere, and there's a lot of talk of Tai and Izzy trying to figure this out, and Izzy, like, formulates that, oh yeah, this will probably black out everywhere in a matter of time. And so Tai's then about to rush off to go fight this situation and see if he can get back to the digital world when the Digivice calls him. And Kari yet again sort of talks to him before he leaves, sort of insinuating she knows something. They're laying it on thick. And so when he's running, he passes Sora and she sees him, and then he ends up in the digital world, and this time it looks like Izzy's being transported. And then it's really cool because there's this shot of like Tai in front of just this sort of digitally stuff, and it makes me think he's going to be in that in-between space again. But then it zooms out and he's in the actual digital world, and it's like, da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, welcome to the digital world, and it's very Jurassic Parky. But I really love the way the digital world looks so far in the few shots we've gotten. You know, the animation and style is definitely dated to the original series, but I always loved the aesthetic of the original digital world from the first two Adventure series, because it definitely had this sort of, you know, otherworldly vibe, and then you had like all of the random Earth elements, like, you know, the phone booths and stuff like that, and it really gave a distinct otherworldly digital vibe to it, and I think this does that, but also makes it different. It seems a little bit more, I don't know if magical is the right word, but it looks, you know, a lot more beautiful, a lot more lush, and I like that it feels like a mix of what I liked about the digital world from the original series and standing out on its own a little bit. And if I recall, some of the Dino Digimon that they showed here are some of like the What If armor evolutions. I mean, they're not What If because I know they appeared in other things, but that's how I knew them when I was younger, is the What If armor evolutions. Like, I think the Stegomon one was some sort of like Armadillomon and friendship, I think. I don't know. But so we get a very brief glimpse of the digital world and then the episode ends. So it was largely a slow setup episode, but I enjoyed it. Someone had mentioned in the comments of my last review how it's kind of interesting that they're really speeding along in a lot of the introductions, because, you know, in the original series we got one Digivolution into Champion an episode, and, you know, with all of the forms. And then in this one, we're like instantly Greymon, Garurumon, Omnimon, skipping all the way to something that wasn't even in the original series, it was in the movie. So that's crazy, but at the same time it's like a slow burn. Like, we're very slowly figuring out the general status quo of what the plot is. We obviously know we have the 8 original characters, but we're just very slowly being introduced to them. You know, we just got a glimpse of Joe, we got a glimpse of everybody in the first episode, but just a glimpse of Sora in this one as well, and so we're slowly introducing them. So I kind of appreciated the stillness of the episode, so it doesn't seem like they're totally rushed, like we may be rushing a little bit in the Digivolution department, but I like that we're kind of building to everything, and I like that the series has this nice hint of familiarity to things, and some good differences as well. And I mentioned that last week, is that I'm interested to find out, like, certain things we know about how they're presented here, if they are at all. Like Kari. Kari had some special stuff going on in the original series, and that's clearly being used here. And that's one benefit of this sort of rehash, is that I do find that type of stuff interesting, is that, you know, us fans that have watched the original series know of certain key points that are in the series, and finding out if they'll use them at all, and if they do, how will they be different. So this wasn't an absolutely amazing episode, but I found it to be enjoyable, kind of a nice breather to get you into it, and I appreciate the pacing. I really like the look at the digital world so far. I'm glad we're getting it. I was really worried at the beginning that we were just going to get that weird in-between state from the first 2 episodes that was basically like Digiquartz, and I didn't like that, because the adventures in the digital world is one of my favorite things about the most Digimon shows, to be honest. And so I'm gonna imagine they're not ever gonna be trapped there, outside of maybe a couple episodes if they ever do something like that, that'll probably be venturing between our world and this world and then the middle world. But I like that there will be adventures. Just to talk really quickly about the preview for what I was going to say next week, but for when the show comes back, you know, you see Tai and Agumon adventuring in the digital world, and it says Sora is called upon when he's in danger, and we see that Sora and Biomon are going to be in the next episode. I think she was in the classic outfit in one shot, and they tease up Birdramon. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it shapes up when we get back, and seeing the balance of the digital world and the real world, seeing our characters get introduced, seeing more of this new digital world. I'm still hoping in the long run we get some more new Digivolutions beyond the ones we already know about, since we're already introducing them quickly and they appear to be using all the same ones. But I would say this was a solid, if not slower episode. I would give it a 7.5. But what do you guys think? Did you enjoy this episode? Are you looking forward to the rest of the series when it comes back? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you can get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.